I'm like, Costa, do you want to write a book? I'm going to write this book. Are you in or are you out, brother? And he goes, I'm in.
I love it.
And in 45 days, we got the book out.
Dr. Elia Gourgouris, thank you so much for joining me on 20-Minute Leaders.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes learning how to be happier and how to navigate through crisis better, because these are the two books that you've written. The first one, a best-selling book. The second one, I'm guessing, is already on its way to becoming a best-selling book. It's not
I hope so. It just came out, so I hope so.
And you have it next to you. So let me see the cover. Let me see how it looks.
So the new book is 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis. A practical guide to emotionally dealing with pandemics and other disasters. And we're going through a multitude of crises at the same time right now. So this
four, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to get there in a second. But first, I need to know how to be happier. And I'm very excited for this. So maybe just give me a couple of those, the key earned insights over your decades of research. What is happiness and why do we yearn for it so much, this concept?
First of all, happiness is a choice. Let's make and it takes work, however, and it comes easier for some than others. But I will tell you this, I get to speak internationally. I travel around the world speaking on happiness and wellness. In every country, the first question I ask the audience is this: if you were to ask any parent, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, religious affiliation, socioeconomic status, gender, whatever, what would you like for your children? The answer is always, I just want them to be, and then I take the microphone and I point toward the audience, happy, everybody's, because that's a universal need, right? We're here on this earth to be happy. So the easiest way, of course, is you cannot be grateful and be sad at the same time. So to have an attitude of gratitude and that's pretty well known. What I want to raise the bar a little bit, because it's easy to be grateful when everything is going well. That's the easiest thing in the world. I say that we're all graduates from the same university, the University of Adversity. So, and the older we get and the more experience we have, the higher the degree. So by the time you get to be my age, you have gray hair, you have multiple PhDs in adversity in life, meaning that we're all going to lose people we love. Our grandparents first, and then our parents at some point, maybe a spouse or a sibling, God forbid a child. We're going to have financial crisis. We're going to have health crisis, be it cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and so on. We're going to have relationships, divorces, things that are not going to work out. So all of these things are part of the human existence, right? So the key, of course, now is, can you be grateful in the midst of crisis? Can you be grateful when you're facing adversity in life? Because when things are going well, like I said, it's easy to be happy and to be grateful. But can we be grateful in the midst of the darkness of life? And I want to ask you that. What do you think? Is that possible even?
It has to be. Otherwise, this is going to be a very sad conversation. So I'm going to say that it has to be.
It has to be. Yes. And the key, of course, to that is, to me, nothing bad has ever happened in my own personal life and the thousands of patients. I used to be a clinical psychologist in my first half in my life before I switched over to the corporate side. Everybody faces these things. Some of them multiple times. And sometimes at the same time, which is very difficult. But to me, either you're learning something or you're winning. There's no losing in life.
Right.
If you learn the lesson. So out of the toughest, the darkest of times, I've actually learned more than my successes.
Right.
And then you use those to move forward, right, in life. So sure. Don't be afraid of adversity, because adversity is coming, and we're getting it now in spades, actually, in humanity as we speak right now. And I do want to go to that. We got multiple crises. We got the COVID-19. We have the financial crisis and the economic crisis as a result of the shutdown. We have a mental health crisis. Just in the United States alone, after the first 2 months, we don't have the statistics yet from the month of May yet. Depression, anxiety, stress-related disorders, up an astonishing 700%.
700%.
700%. These are new people that are not people that have pre-existing conditions, mind you. These are specifically as a result of the pandemic. And then, of course, you have the racial strife and everything that's happening in the streets right now as we speak. And so to have 4 crises simultaneously is very unusual. Now, I'm an optimist by nature, and I will tell you this, that humanity may be down on one knee and may be struggling a little bit, and we're getting a beating right now, but we will overcome this. Let there be no doubt. And I also want to share with you that there are 4 personality types when dealing with crisis. And there's a big differentiation between danger and fear. If somebody comes up to you and coughs in your face right now, you're in danger. That's real. Fear, however, is not your friend. So we don't want to make decisions, whether as individuals or as companies, whether the corporate world or any organization, based on fear, because those are not good decisions.
Right.
So now let's talk about the 4 personality types. Number 1 is the victim. The victim is all, why is this happening to me? This always happens to me. Poor me, right? Poor me. The second personality type is what we call the critic. Now, the critic, regardless of what the federal, state, or local, government or the healthcare officials, they criticize everything. For example, you should wear a mask when you go outside. Well, that's stupid. Okay, don't wear a mask when you go outside. Well, that's stupid too. Like, no matter what comes up, they criticize everything, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what it is. The third group we like to call the bystander.
They make the most noise, right?
They do, and they're very loud.
Very loud.
But they offer no solutions. This is important. The third group we call the bystander. Now, the bystander is a good person, but basically, the bystander is overwhelmed by fear and really doesn't know what to do. Like, this is a huge wave of unknown. I feel out of control. My life is out of control. I don't know what to do. So they look to the left, they look to the right, they look at their neighbor, but basically they have the deer with the headlights look, and they do nothing. And all 3 of these personality types have one thing in common. They offer no solution.
Right.
The victim doesn't, the critic certainly doesn't, and neither does the bystander. Now we get to the 4th type, and the 4th type we like to call the navigator. And and this is the premise of this book, right? That we all should become navigators. The navigator begins with a positive attitude and says, look, no matter what happens, we will overcome this. Practices self-care, which is the first key to navigating a crisis, meaning they take care of themselves in order to be successful. And then they're flexible and adaptable. People with this new normal, if you think you can go on and do business as usual and expect to have successful results, you're sadly mistaken.
Right.
Everything is completely different right now in the last 90 days to 4 months. So, and why is flexibility important? So we like to use the example of the oak tree and the palm tree. The oak tree, symbolically speaking, think about this. The oak tree is this massive, strong tree that's been around for 100 years. Huge, really strong, right?
Yep.
But if there's enough moisture, enough rain, and enough wind at the top of the storm, the hurricane, guess what happens to oak trees? They come crashing down on cars, people, homes, and so on. The palm tree, on the other hand, is thin, tall, but very flexible. At the top of the hurricane, 150 miles, yes, it can go parallel to the ground. But when the storm passes, and think about the storm of life, right? Not the actual storm. It raises up again and survives.
Up and down,
Up and down. So we're asking people now to be flexible like a palm tree. Don't be an oak tree and say, well, that's how I've done things for the last 30 years. I'm not changing. You're going to break if you stay like that. You need to be flexible.
But Dr. Gourgouris, I have to ask, because you also have a lot of experience working with corporates, and you transitioned from clinical work to the private sector, and now you're helping leaders, and I'm going to take myself, for example. One day I'm going to have a company of my own, and I hope to have 1,000 employees, which I can lead that ship wherever we go. Now the question is it really reasonable to try and aim for all of the employees in the organization to be navigators, or do you want to have some critics, some bystanders, or do you really want everybody to be navigators here?
This is a fantastic question, and here's why. The critic, the victim, the bystander, the navigator all exist within every human being. We all have those personalities within us, right?
Yeah. And
I will tell you this, when this first hit, I was the bystander. All my speaking engagements that I had set up throughout the world, guess what happened? Canceled.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy, now what do I do, right? And I kind of felt like a victim a little bit. I'm like, oh no, why is this happening to me? And believe me, there are things that the government has done that I criticize very open. I'm like, that is stupid. I mean, look, I see people driving in their cars sometimes by themselves wearing a mask. Hello? There's nobody else in the car. But, and here's the important thing, I didn't stay a victim. I didn't stay in critical mode, and I didn't stay as a bystander. I decided to do something about it. And the result of actually of that, of the navigating, is writing a brand new book. I had no plans in 2020 to write a book.
Beautiful.
But I had this impression that I needed to do it, and I called my partner. I'm like, he's Greek also. I'm like, Costa, do you want to write a book? I'm going to write this book. Are you in or are you out, brother? And he goes, I'm in.
I love it.
And in 45 days, we got the book out. To put that in perspective, my first book took 3 years to write. Just so you. So,
okay, that's
but
incredible.
that's what navigation looks like. So do we want all our employees to be navigators? You're darn right we do. And
no, I think that's incredible, specifically because just yesterday I spoke with a Professor Dan Ariely, who's a good friend and a mentor in behavioral economics. He wrote Predictably Irrational, and he said that one of the things, his advice to us was that when he has a plane that is delayed, he sits down and uses that opportunity to write a children's book. And he only writes the children's book when his flight is delayed. So he's turning that situation from a victim point, why is this happening to me, to, oh, I have an opportunity to now and work on a project that I never had the chance. So, so I'm seeing all these patterns with very successful people, and I'm starting to adopt this mindset.
So we want everybody to be navigators, but also more importantly, because of the other book too, we want to be happy navigators. We don't want you to just navigate and be.
What does that mean? What does that mean, being a happy navigator?
To me, it means that you enjoy the process. You truly enjoy the journey. When we talk in the corporate world, I started talking about happiness in the corporate world before all the studies backed it up, right? Because they used to think, like, happy employees, I pay them. Why do they need to be happy for? I'll tell you why they need to be happy, because happy employees, number one, they're physically healthier. That means they have less time off because they're healthier.
Okay.
They're more collaborative. They're better team players because they're happier. There's greater retention, right? People don't, they leave. They're loyal. They love where they work. And as a result of that, they're more productive. Right. And guess what happens when you have a productive workforce? Your company is more profitable.
Well, what's happening now in Silicon Valley? Every other day we see of another allegation or accusation of companies' cultures. They're just going down. And it seems that company culture in 2020 is one of the most important aspects that a founder has to work on. So where do you come into this arena? What's happening, and why are companies suffering from their lack of happiness or culture? Because
their focus should be where? When you treat your employees poorly, guess how your employees treat your customers? Poorly. Yeah. When you treat your employees well, guess how they treat your customers? They treat your customers well. There's a direct link between the way that you treat people. So in the rush, especially nowadays, with the economy being shut down for 60 to 90 days, HR directors right now are having a very difficult time because the CEO, now they're ramping up again. Businesses are coming back on again, right? Now they're like, hey, listen, our revenue, we're behind schedule by 60 to 90 days. What our goals were for this year. The employees need to work 2 times or 3 times as hard as they did before. That's where the CEO is coming from. Now, the employees, on the other hand, who are coming back, and not all of them, because some of them are going to stay at home. They're going to refuse to come to work. They've been traumatized by all this. So many things have happened out of their control. So the seniors, I call it, the C-suite, basically, senior leaders need to treat employees completely different than before. And they need to say, look, I know we had to hit the numbers by the end of this month, but here's the why behind it. Like, they need to step up their own game and communicate to the employees as to why I'm asking you to hit those numbers. Because if we don't, I may have to lay off 25% of the workforce. And I don't want to do that. The enlightened leader will use those words and say, you're part of my family. I don't want to have to let go of any one of you. I need you to work harder so we can hit those numbers so everybody is still employed next month. And not to do it in a fear-based mode where you do it or else, but truly do it in an empathetic, caring, and compassionate mode to say, listen, we're all in this together. We're all struggling. None of us expected to have almost 0 revenue for 90 days. So we're way behind the 8 ball. I do need your help. I do need you to work 14 hours, but I'm doing it because I also want you to be here at the end of the year so we can all be standing together and united. If they don't do that and they just focus on the bottom line, these people are already scared. They're already down. They're already depressed and traumatized. You add that kind of pressure on top of that, you're not going to hit your goals.
So it sounds like if I thought that until now was the real test of leadership, it sounds like actually the reopening is going to be just as great a test on how do you understand and empathize with the new situation and your new employees, quote unquote, that it's not just like you froze for 90 days and you came back to reality, but reality continued, it diverted, and now you have a new reality to work with.
And you use two key words, empathy. Meaning, in other words, senior leaders need to show increased emotional intelligence, like a lot more than they ever have before. That's number one. And then number two, in some ways, you're re-onboarding all your employees, like as if they're new employees, because this is truly it's a new normal. And people say, oh, I hate to use that term, but guess what? The new normal will become the new normal because things are changing so rapidly. We really don't know even what the fall will bring. Yeah. Nobody can really predict. Will there be a second wave? How bad will it be? Will it happen in September and November when the flu season kicks in? People don't really know. So this is the reason why it's important to take care of your employees now more than ever. Dr.
Gourgouris, why are you so passionate about this? Why go get a PhD on psychology and focus on happiness, write 2 books? You're the president of an organization that helps thousands of people be happier. Why? Why?
Because I feel like my purpose in life, and I've known this since I was a young man actually, is to make a difference in this world. And I feel this world right now is really struggling. I need to up my own game. Like writing this book in 45 days, I had to up my own game and my own expectations. Because normally I'm like, I'm kind of Greek, like, whatever, we'll get there when we get there. No, there's an urgency to do things right and to do them now. Because people are hurting and they're struggling now. Not next November, not in 2021 or 2025. We need to help them now. And organizations need that help now. And, and this comes from an optimist, by the way. I'm not like the sky's falling and pessimistic guy, but I see what's out there and I feel deeply. So for me, yes, happiness is the most important thing in life. Senior leaders need to have a different mindset going into this. It's not business as usual. Your workforce is not the same that it was 90 days ago. I promise you, so many things have changed. So be sensitive to that. And the words that you also used, compassion, kindness, understanding, over-communicate to the point where your employee goes, boss, enough. That's the 10th time you told me that you care about me. I got it. I got to go to work now. Like, I know it's kind of silly what I'm saying, but you know what I mean, though. Like, you have to overdo it. Yes, over-communicate. And show them that you.
That's a downfall of a lot of leaders, right? That they under-communicate and instead of over-communicate.
In other words, we can't afford to take shortcuts as a leadership right now. Not this time. Not this time. So, and I'm really excited for where you're going with your life. I have to tell you that I did my research on you. You're a wonderful young man, and I see nothing but success in front of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And one of the reasons why I enjoy this so much, like we spoke before, is because I get to learn of all these different industries. And when else would I get to speak to a happiness expert and, gain, and even, if I take 3 takeaways from this on over-communication and having empathy for my colleagues and employees and employers, and being a navigator instead of a critic or instead of a bystander. I mean, just those 3 things are priceless lessons that I learned, and hopefully my friends who are watching this will also enjoy. Doctor, before we leave, and I can't believe 20 minutes are almost up. It's so disheartening.
It goes by fast. Yeah, it goes
so fast. I want to know 3 words that best describe you.
Well, happiness is number 1. My nickname is that you're the happiness doctor, basically. So happiness is 1. I think there's nothing more important to me than family and the family, unit, the people that I love the most. And then, my faith, and whether your faith is in God or your faith is in, the divine, or your faith is whatever you want to describe it, that, we will overcome this. Let there be no doubt. The vaccine will come. The drugs, we're getting very close to having the drugs already. And I love the fact that humanity is working together. All the scientists from all over the world are working together. We have a common enemy, an invisible enemy. And listen, humanity has been up against the wall before. This is not going to be the end of us. We will be better as a result of it. And even in the corporate world, I think there'll be better. The working from home, or some of the differences that we're seeing right now, in new ways, there'll be more innovation than we've seen in quite a while, because that's what a crisis brings about, is the need for innovation. So that's another plus. So don't give up.
I love it.
Keep the faith. Be happy.
I love it. Okay, last question, just because it's really fascinating me now. Where are we headed with the research on happiness? What is left to uncover? So we know we want to be happy. We have an idea of things of how to deal with adversity, but what is left to uncover on this big question of happiness?
I think the one thing that, although they have been studied, it has to do with kindness, because yes, self-care is important, but it's in the end, why? Why are we doing all of this? It's to help one another. I want to talk to your audience. If you're feeling sorry for yourself, if you feel like, man, I have it so tough, things are really hard right now, I promise you there's somebody else out there whose life is a lot worse than yours.
100%.
Find that person in an act of service. It could be a text, it could be a phone call. If you get that prompting, I need to call Michael, I'm not going to put it off. I'm going to call Michael and say, how are you doing? And in America here, the answer is always, I'm doing fine. And I'm going to say, no. How are you really doing? It's between you and I now. This is what managers need to do with their employees. Yes. They need to ask the second question, not just a token. How are you doing? Because most people are going to say, fine. I'm like, no, let me close the door. I see your countenance. I see your face. I see your eyes. I think you're struggling. Tell me what I can do to help you.
I think this is the Greek part of you that's coming out from the.
Yeah. Yes, it is, because we love, there's a word in Greek called philoxenia, which means the love of strangers, in essence. So we have to go the extra mile and help those around us. And there's need all around. By the way, when happy people are kind by nature. On the other hand, when you perform an act of kindness, that makes you happy on the inside. So with kindness and happiness, you can't have one without the other, in essence. So maybe there need to be more study of that connection between those two, kindness and happiness.
I love it. Dr. Gourgouris, thank you so much for your time, for the inspiration. I can't wait to order your book and read it. Navigating Crises. I can't believe you wrote it in 45 days. That must be something.
I had help. I had a co-writer. Yeah.
With all the help in the world, bringing an idea to production in 45 days, it's mind-blowing. So I can't wait to read it. And thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having me on your program. Thank you.
Take care.